Guys, welcome back to another YouTube video here today, and today we are coming at you with a brand new cache build. This is Elemental Cache. It is really good for mobbing, and it is super good for bossing. You can one-shot bosses even on true mode. Well, not really one-shot because there's a beam tosser, so we're shooting 3 shots, so it's not really a one-shot, I guess. But either way, it wrecks bosses. And so we're using the purple stellium with a beam tosser. This one's 49k damage, where you've got it in all elements that really matter: fire, shock, and corrosive. And then for mobbing, we are using let me switch this stuff out real quick. We are using the complex root with all shotgun, and it's really good for mobbing. We're also using the linebacker. This is really good for the ordinate enemies slash blooms crystals. They're really good for those. It takes out the crystals super easy. And then we are using the Wombo Combo for more mobbing. This is a cryo version. This one has Ripper on it, which I prefer Ripper. You don't need Ripper, but I prefer Ripper just because I like the extra fire rate that you can get with Ripper. So I prefer Ripper. You don't need Ripper on your Wombo Combo, but I do prefer it. It is my preference. And then we are using a amp and enrage rep kit, so we get amp and enrage when we pop our rep kit, so we get a bunch of extra damage when we do our very first shot, which is really nice. And then we are using the crit knife, which is really nice. It will give you some extra damage, plus this will also give you a guaranteed crit to proc windfall. Have a higher chance of proc windfall. So if you throw your crit knife at the boss, you proc your crit, and you'll proc windfall really easily. And then we are using the Messy Pounder, Head Ringer, Gun to Torque, License Parts, gain 25% gun damage and 100% damage radius. This one has shotgun critical damage and gun splash radius and shotgun splash radius, which is really nice for the linebacker. And then we're using the triple amp watch for dinner. So we get we get some amp damage, and then we get a little bit of extra shock damage. And then we're using the Ragris Vigor trigger bot. This has 5 Vigorish, 2 Infortuna. This one has shotgun damage, 40% critical hit damage, and gun critical hit chance, which is really nice, actually. I found this just playing through on my Harlow one day, and it just was like, what? I was like, I don't even know if this is any good, but I picked it up, and well, here we are. And we are using 3 Deadeyes, so you get gun accuracy, gun critical hit chance, and every critical hit chance critical hit will stack more critical hit damage, which is really good. And then God Killer. We're using God Killer to damage the belt. Badass enemies are increased by 10%. And then we are using 1 skill craft, so all of our skill damage gets a 50% increase more damage. And then for the skill tree, we are using Luck to Be Robot. We're using 5 in here, so we get more action skill cooldown rate, which is really good. And then we put 5 points into Zero Fortuna. This gives you fortune stacks, gains increased chance of windfall. Fortune skill, cash gains increased elemental effect chance and elemental effect damage. The more fortune stacks, the greater the bonus. So the more fortune stacks he has, the more windfall chance. So this gives you a really nice high windfall chance also. And then we are using it gives you also our elemental chance and elemental effect damage, which is really good. Then we put 1 in the red moon rising just to get further down the tree. This also gives you bonus fire damage while windfall is active of damage dealt. And then we're putting 4 into riding high, so you get a little more windfall rotation, which is really nice. Then we put 5 points into can't stop winning, so we get a 10% more critical hit chance, and our action skill critical has a 20% critical hit chance, which is really good. Then we put 2 points in the Turn of Fate, so we get further down the tree. So this gives us life steal while windfall is active. This actually gives us overshield steal, so this is really good. And then Fortune Favor, we put 3 in here to get further down the tree. Also more gun damage and skill damage. Cash steals increased gun damage and skill damage. The more feller health and or an overshield he has, the greater the bonus. And this gives you up to 30% gun damage and 39% skill damage. Then we put 1 point in Let It Ride. Whenever Cash loses a fortune stack, the next shot from his gun deals increased damage. So this gives you up to 70% gun damage. You can actually get a lot of stacks of this. And I don't even see anywhere where it says this skill can stack. But you can get a bunch of stacks of it. And then the Windfall, while Windfall is active, Cash and his companions deal random bonus elemental damage. So this gives you up to 30% bonus elemental damage dealt of 30% damage dealt, which is really nice. And then we put 3 points into fast hands. So we got our Windfall chance, which is really good. We put 5 points into alchemy, so we gain fortune stacks, and we have when we do an elemental damage. 2 points to sound of rain for more crit hit chance. 5 points in the trick tailor. So fortune skill gains increased elemental damage. The more fortune stacks he has, the greater the bonus. And then we put 5 points into high roller. So Cash gains increased gun damage. The more action skill cooldown he has, the greater the bonus. Vigorish fortune skill, whenever Cash deals damage with an action skill, his gun damage deals bonus elemental damage of that type. The more fortune stacks the Cash has, the greater is the bonus. And this skill will give you up to bonus up to 70% damage dealt, which is really good. Then we put 3 points in the dealer's buff. Whenever Cash gains a fortune, he restores a portion of his action skill, which is really good. So we're always able to spam our action skill during mobbing times. And then for specializations, we are using the best defense. So you get damage dealt, more damage dealt when shields are full. And then we're using Riddle You this, so it gives you gun damage per stack, which is kind of nice, especially for mobbing. And then Contamination. This will give you a status effect application chance or critical hit. And then we put 1 point in here, compounding affliction, so we get damage received. The boss receives damage taken per status effect applied to him, which is really nice because Vigorish applies random elemental effects, so you get more of that. And then this skill also applies random elemental effects. So between these two skills, you're getting a bunch of random elemental effects, and that really helps. It's a really nice skill to run with this build. And I hope you guys enjoy this build video. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.